welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Hiba and this is my little journal. Today I'm excited to start my October daily, and I've shared multiple videos in September kind of setting up everything for October daily. I put together this little organizer with all my October daily stuff. I have a bucket with stamps, and I went ahead and printed out some of the photos that I want to be using for today's prompts. And we're going to be using my Scrappy Spiral notebook, my 2025 yearly project notebook. So I'm excited for this. I can't wait to share with you my process. And I think I'm going to put you on voiceover so the process isn't too long. But I do also wanted to share that I have this tag that I stamped out. I was trying out my new stamp sets for Halloween, and I really like how this tag turned out. So I'm gonna try to figure out a way to use it in my October daily. If I don't use it today, I'll definitely put it in my stash and use it on a different prompt. But anyways, today we're going to be documenting it's prompt number 1. So fall decorations, and then spooky reads and spooky playlists. So let's get right into it and put together my first few prompts in my October daily. All right, let's start with day 1 of my October daily 2025. So I used Canva this time around to put together a few things. I created this photo collage, and I created this pattern paper with some embellishing and my journaling. I left some space between the embellishments and the journaling because I thought I could use probably a stamp or some of my own embellishments. Now I'm going to be stamping 01 for day 1, and I'm using this year the Studio Calico stamp set. I just really wanted some bold numbers this year, and I'm going to be going through my stamps to fill in that little space next to the number 1. And I found this spooky season. I decided to use that to fill in the space. And I'm going to be stamping a little bat as well. Now, while I have my stamps out, I decide that I'm going to be using a stamp to fill in the gap between my embellishments and my journaling. And I found this older Feature Craft Halloween stamp set, and one of the stamps said, "Having a wicked good time." Felt like it fit perfectly, and it just filled in that space really well. So I stamped that. I'm going to color it in. I'm just going to try to match my numbers and basically stick that side of my page down. Now I can start working on the opposite side, and I feel like I forgot to mention that day 1 is about fall decoration. I just grabbed screenshots from Pinterest because I really want to just add a little bit of fall into my home. As you guys know, I'm not big on decorating for the season, but I do like to add a tiny bit of decoration throughout my home. So I went on Pinterest, grabbed a few screenshots for inspiration, and I created that collage. So I have this small space right under my collage, and I wanted to use my Haunted Nights PET tape. This is available in my shop, and I wanted to create a scene. I love this PET tape because you can create really fun scenes using the stickers. The only thing I wish I did was I wish I moved everything more centered. Everything looked way to the right. I don't know, maybe I thought I wanted to stamp or something and I left that space, but I don't end up stamping anything in that space. So I do end up centering everything. I don't know if I captured it on camera or not, but I do fix it maybe later on. And I centered the house and the tree. I am also using my own stamps to add a moon and some little bats just to fill in the space and give it more dimension. Okay, let's move on to prompt number 2, which I'm going to be documenting spooky reads. I printed 4 books. Now, will I be reading all 4 books? I don't know, but I will try. and I'm really excited for these four. So what I decided to do was to create a bookshelf. I'm going to use an old Feed Your Craft stamp set to create the bookshelves, and I'm just using the books to measure everything out. And then I'm going to use some of my book stamps to add a little something to the bookshelves. So basically, I'm going to fill out the bookshelves with books and little knickknacks. So I'm just going to use my stamps for that. So I start by finishing off the bookshelves themselves. So I just kind of close them off. And then I grab the book stamps, and I'm going to stamp a stack of books with a coffee cup. I'll also be stamping like a bottle of poison and little bats and things like that. I just really wanted it to be colorful, and I wanted to add a little dimension to my shelves by just kind of using my stamps. Now the top shelf, because I have two books on there, I didn't have a stamp that I could fit next to my two books. So I will go through my embellishments and try to find something thin and tall to fill in that space. And when I use an embellishment, I can layer that embellishment over my book. But if I stamped it, I really can't. It would either have to go behind the book, or I would have to stamp it on like sticker paper. So I decide to go with my embellishments. And you'll see here, I actually found this die cut. I think it was from Kelly Perky. It had the little poison bottles. So I just trim one off, and I use that to fill in that gap right next to my books. Now I'm going to grab my markers and start coloring in my bookshelves and the stack of books that I stamped out, just to bring in some color to this column. I also want to stamp my numbers, so I grab my Studio Calico stamp set, and I'm going to stamp 02. I also want to fill in that gap right underneath my bookshelves. There was a lot of space there. I don't have any journaling. At first I thought maybe I could add some journaling, but there's nothing to say here. So what I decide to do is go back into my embellishments and try to find something that can fill that space. So I start looking through my stickers, and I found this adorable ghost, and he's kind of popping up from the corner. And I thought it would be perfect to fill in that space. But what would be even better if I had a speech bubble that I can use for the ghost, like something that the ghost is saying. And I found this adorable speech bubble stamp set from Syncopation, and it said, I put my books down to be here. So I'm just going to use that, and it fills that space really well, but it doesn't take away from my bookshelves. And to complete the column, I'm just going to use another stamp to stamp right next to my numbers to fill that space up as well. Now, at first I thought I was done. I'm not going to do anything else, but I really wanted to use the whole page for prompt number 2. So I go through my paper, and I'm thinking maybe I can add more embellishments, maybe more stamping with a pop of color using the paper. I start with this really beautiful black stars pattern paper, but once I start adding the embellishments, I feel like it looks way too busy. And I really wanted to use some more embellishments. As you guys know, I have a lot of stash, and I feel like if I don't use it now, I will never use it. So the more I use, the better. You'll see, like, at some point I build a kind of a scene with this adorable skeleton and him holding a stack of books and a few bats, but I just don't like that pattern paper in the background. So I go back into my pattern paper, start looking around, and I found this grid pattern, which looked so much better. You can really see the embellishments much more. And if I wanted to stamp, it will pop. So I decide to trim down my paper, stick it down, and create that scene again with the grid in the background. And it looks so much better. And so I'll just go ahead and start sticking things down. I say this all the time. Cocoa Daisy's die cuts are the best because they have that adhesive backing. You don't have to stick things down yourself. You can just peel it off and stick it down. So once I'm done with my scene, I do want to add a title. So I just go back into my embellishments and I found this boo on one of my rub-on sheets. And I'm just going to build my title using rub-ons and stamps. So I think it actually said Boo Beautiful, if I'm not mistaken. And then I'm going to complete the title by stamping books. I love how this turned out. I was able to use a lot of my embellishments, and I was also able to kind of make a little title for my column. Now we can move on to prompt number 3, where I'm going to be documenting spooky music. Now, this is not spooky music. I just decided that I'm going to be documenting music that I'm listening to at the moment. I start my column by stamping the numbers, and then I'm going to be using, of course, this old Feed Your Craft cassette tape stamp set. Love the stamp set. It is not available anymore, but I use it almost every year in my October daily. So I printed my photos to fit underneath the cassette tape, and I'm going to be stamping this stamp multiple times. I'm going to leave some space because I do want to create a little fold where I can tuck it underneath my photos to create a flip up. So it's really easy to do. Honestly, you don't need this big of a piece of paper, but for some reason, my brain takes it a few seconds to figure out where my fold is going to sit and how much space I need. So I always end up using a larger piece of paper just to make sure I get it right at the first try. Now I can start folding. I leave a big gap at the top to be able to fold it underneath my photo. And so once I create my folds, I can trim them down and use the cassette tapes to create a flip up for my photos. Halfway through trimming out my cassette tapes, I remembered that I didn't use the filler stamp to add color to my cassette tapes. It would have been so much easier doing this step while they were on one piece of paper, but I forgot, so I'm just gonna have to do it now, and it still worked out. It was totally fine, but I also wish I went with darker colors. I feel like the colors I used were way too bright. I wish I went with like, I don't know, mustard yellow and things like that. But oh well, it still worked out. I do use some of the stamps from the stamp set to add some titles to the cassette tapes. And then once I'm done stamping and filling out my cassette tapes, I'm going to go ahead and start building my page. Now, what I thought I was going to do is basically create the fold. I even use my bone folder to help me do that. And then add the photo underneath my flip up. But the flip up still needs a little something on the opposite side or for the flip up itself. So I go through my stickers. And I found these stickers. These were a printout that I created from my Hey Pumpkin digital collection. And I've had this in my stash for a while. I felt like, if I used 2 of them on each flip up, I would I would be able to use a lot of it and kind of make a dent in my stash. So I went with it, and it actually turned out pretty cute. I even use some of my stamps to add titles to each flip up, and I like it, but I don't love it. I like that I use my stash. I hope I'm making sense. I don't know. I just feel like I didn't have anything in my stash big enough to cover the fold. Maybe I didn't really need to cover the whole fold, but it is what it is. It worked out. I was able to use a lot of these stickers and make a dent in my big stash of stickers, and it added like Halloween vibes to my flip ups. Now that I'm done sticking down all the stickers and the cassette tapes, I want to add some Velcro stickers to my flip ups. I love using these Velcro stickers to keep things down, especially in a journal like this where I do end up having a lot of flip ups and flip outs and things like that. These Velcro stickers are perfect for that. So I'm just going to add one to each cassette tape. And then I want to add a little something to the bottom. There's a little bit of space there that I could use some stickers or embellishments to add a little more color. So I go through my stash and I found this little die cut that said sweet and spooky. It's a little bit too long, so I'm going to trim it down to fit. And I will also be using my puffy stickers to add some dimension. So once I stick those down, I'm going to grab a little ghost and a black heart, add it at the bottom of my column, and fill in that space. To complete my layout, I will just go through my stickers and add a little word sticker next to my number stamp and basically call day 1, day 2, and 3 complete. I had so much fun putting these together. I can't wait to share more of my layouts with you. I will also be doing some reels for Instagram in my October daily. So if you want to see my pages come together, make sure that you're following me there as well. Anyways, you guys, don't forget I'll be linking everything I used and shared down in the description box for you. Hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing, and I hope to see you guys very soon. Bye.